The night I closed my $15 million exit, I thought I had finally won. The kind of win people dream about but rarely reach. Years of sleepless nights, missed birthdays, ignored calls, and betting everything I had on an idea that almost broke me. It had all led to this one moment. One signature, one deal, one breath where everything finally felt worth it. The room had been filled with polished smiles, firm handshakes, and the quiet tension of money changing hands. When I signed the final document, there was a brief pause, like the world itself was acknowledging the moment. Then came the congratulations, the claps on the back, the "you did it" smiles. I should have felt unstoppable. But as I stepped out of the conference room, the air suddenly felt different, heavier. That's when my lawyer grabbed my arm, not casually, not professionally, tightly. "Listen carefully," he said, his voice low, almost shaking despite how hard he tried to control it. "When the final audit comes in, you need to lie." For a second, I thought I misheard him. My brain refused to process what he just said. Lie? I pulled my arm back slightly, staring at him. About what? His eyes flicked down the hallway, then back to me. He leaned closer, lowering his voice even more. "Just trust me. If anyone asks about the numbers, especially the offshore accounts, you say you don't know anything." The word hit me like a punch. Offshore accounts. My heartbeat slowed, then started racing all at once. "What offshore accounts?" I asked, but my voice didn't sound like mine anymore. It sounded distant, careful. He didn't answer immediately. That was the first real sign. Instead, he forced a small smile, the kind that doesn't reach the eyes. "It's just standard structuring, nothing you need to worry about. This is how big deals work." But I knew my deal. Every line, every clause, every number. And this was never part of it. My chest tightened as a strange silence settled between us. The hallway noise faded. The distant voices, the closing doors, the hum of the building, it all blurred into the background. Because in that moment, something inside me shifted. This wasn't confidence. This wasn't control. This was fear, real fear. The kind that leaks through even the most practiced voices. The kind that makes a man like him, someone who had handled deals 10 times bigger than mine, lose his composure for just a second. And that second was enough. Because fear doesn't come from nowhere. Fear means pressure. Fear means risk. Fear means someone is hiding something big. "I'll handle it," he added quickly, adjusting his tie, trying to regain that polished image. "Just stick to what I said. You'll be fine." But I didn't respond. I just nodded slowly, pretending to accept it, pretending not to notice the cracks forming right in front of me. We walked in opposite directions after that. He went back toward the conference room, back into the world of controlled narratives and legal language. And I walked out of the building, into the cold night air that suddenly didn't feel as satisfying as it should have. The city lights stretched endlessly in front of me. Cars passed. People laughed somewhere in the distance. Everything looked normal, but nothing felt normal anymore. Because just minutes ago, I thought I had reached the top. Now it felt like I had just stepped into something I didn't understand. Something I didn't agree to. Something that could destroy everything I had built. That night, there was no celebration. No calls, no champagne. I sat alone, staring at my laptop screen, replaying his words over and over again. "You need to lie. Not be careful. Not clarify if asked. Lie." That wasn't advice, that was a warning. And warnings don't come without reasons. My fingers hovered over the keyboard for a moment. A part of me wanted to ignore it, to trust the system, trust the people I had hired, trust that everything was under control. But another part of me, the part that built everything from nothing, didn't believe in blind trust. It believed in proof. So I opened the deal files, every document, every email, every transaction record I could access. At first, everything looked clean, perfect even. But perfection can be the biggest red flag. The deeper I went, the more things started to feel off. Small inconsistencies, numbers that didn't align perfectly, References to entities I didn't recognize. Names that appeared once and then disappeared. My breathing slowed as the pattern began to form. This wasn't random. This was designed, carefully, quietly, and intentionally hidden. Hours passed without me noticing. The night grew darker, the room colder. But I didn't stop. Because now it wasn't about the money anymore. It was about the truth. And then, I found it. One file, buried deep, misnamed, almost invisible unless you knew exactly where to look. My cursor hovered over it for a second. Something in my gut told me, once I opened it, there was no going back. I clicked, and as the contents loaded onto my screen, my blood ran cold. The deeper I went into the documents, the clearer it became. This wasn't a mistake, and it definitely wasn't standard structuring. My lawyer had been altering transaction trails, not sloppily, not in a way an amateur would, but precise, calculated, almost invisible unless you knew exactly what to look for. At first, it showed up as tiny inconsistencies, numbers that didn't align perfectly across versions, a decimal slightly off, a timestamp that didn't match the sequence, references to entities never mentioned elsewhere. But as I connected the dots, a pattern emerged. Hidden clauses buried under layers of legal language, shadow accounts linked through shell entities, money quietly rerouted through channels I had never approved or even seen. Each discovery felt like a crack forming beneath my feet. This wasn't just manipulation. This was engineering. And the worst part? Every single trail, every altered path, every questionable transfer led back to me. My name, my deal, my signature. If this surfaced publicly or triggered an investigation, I would look guilty, not a victim. I leaned back, staring at my reflection in the dark glass, realizing this wasn't about protecting me or keeping the deal smooth. He was building a shield, and I was the shield. He wasn't protecting me, he was setting me up. That realization didn't bring panic, it brought clarity. For days, I said nothing, showing up to every call, meeting, and discussion, playing my role perfectly, nodding, asking just enough to seem engaged, but not enough to raise suspicion, letting him believe I trusted him while quietly building my case. Every email, document revision, late-night call, every hesitation, every crack in his confidence, I recorded, archived, and studied. Because sometimes what people don't say tells everything. The more I collected, the darker it got. This wasn't his first time. Old deals, different clients, similar structures, all initially appearing legitimate, but deeper investigation revealed small diversions, complex routing, money slipping through layers of legal fog, and at the center, him. Just far enough from the surface to stay invisible, using others as fronts, with some clients discovering the truth too late. I sat that night staring at the growing folder of files, recordings, and evidence, realizing this wasn't just corruption, it was a system, a machine designed to exploit trust and erase accountability, and I was almost another name on that list. Almost. He thought I was just another client, another signature, another opportunity, but he miscalculated. He underestimated how far I was willing to go to protect what I built. I didn't spend years fighting, sacrificing, and surviving to let someone rewrite my story behind closed doors. This time, he picked the wrong person, and the more evidence I gathered, the more certain I became. I wasn't just going to expose him. I wasn't going to react emotionally or make a careless move. No, I would be patient, precise, undeniable, and when the truth came out, it wouldn't just damage him, it would end everything he built on lies. Because some people think they're untouchable, right until the moment everything they've hidden is placed in the light. And I was getting very, very close to that moment. The day of the official audit arrived, and somehow the air felt heavier than before. Everything about that morning was too perfect. The conference room spotless, glass walls, polished table, bottled water lined up as if nothing in this room had ever been questioned before. But beneath that clean surface, there was tension. The kind you can't see but can feel in your chest. I walked in with the folder in my hand, not too tight, not too loose, just enough to look normal. He was already there, sitting comfortably, relaxed, confident, flipping through a file like this was just another routine meeting. When he looked up at me, he gave a small, reassuring nod, the kind that said everything was under control. For a brief second, I wondered how many times he had done this before. How many rooms like this? How many people sitting where I was sitting, thinking they were safe? I took my seat beside him. The auditors arrived shortly after, professional, neutral, focused, no emotions, no assumptions, just facts. The meeting began like any other. Basic questions, timeline confirmations, standard verification. I answered calmly, clearly, nothing unusual. And then it came, a slight shift in tone, a pause before the next question. "One thing we'd like clarification on," one of them said, glancing at the documents in front of him. "There appear to be some inconsistencies in the transaction flow, specifically related to external accounts." The room went quiet, not completely silent, but enough that every small movement suddenly felt louder. I felt him move slightly beside me, then lean in, just enough so only I could hear him. "Remember what I told you," he whispered. His voice was steady, controlled, but now I knew the truth. That wasn't confidence, that was calculation. For a split second, time slowed. This was the moment, the exact moment he had prepared for, and the exact moment I had been building toward. I could have followed his script, nodded, denied, played the role he designed for me, and maybe everything would have stayed buried a little longer. But I didn't come this far to protect a lie. I slowly leaned back in my chair, breaking the closeness of that whisper, then looked straight at the auditors, not rushed, not nervous, just certain. "I think you should see something first." The words landed differently than anything else said in that room, calm but heavy. I placed the folder on the table and slid it forward. No drama, no sudden movement. Just truth moving across a polished surface. For a second, no one touched it. Then one of the auditors reached forward and opened it. Page by page, the room began to change. You could feel it, the shift, the controlled environment slowly cracking under the weight of what was being revealed. Emails, marked discrepancies, transaction maps, signed documents with alterations highlighted, voice transcripts. Everything laid out in a way that couldn't be explained away, couldn't be twisted, couldn't be ignored. Every lie, every hidden transfer, every carefully disguised move, all leading back to him. I didn't look at the auditors, I looked at him. At first, he tried to maintain it, the same composed expression, the same professional calm. But then it happened, a small flicker. His eyes moved faster, his jaw tightened slightly, color started draining from his face. For the first time since I had known him, he wasn't in control. He shifted in his seat, trying to speak. "I think there's been some misunderstanding, but this time no one was listening to him, because the evidence was louder than his words, and truth doesn't need defending when it's clear." The rest of the meeting blurred. Questions shifted, attention shifted. And just like that, power shifted from him to me. Weeks passed, but the outcome was inevitable. An official investigation was launched, his records were pulled, his past cases reviewed, his carefully built reputation placed under a microscope. And just like everything built on lies, it didn't hold. His license was suspended, his name, once trusted, now questioned everywhere. Everything he had hidden, exposed. Not by emotion, not by revenge, but by truth. And me? I didn't celebrate. I didn't feel the rush people expect after something like that. What I felt was stillness, relief, closure. Because I walked away with something far more valuable than $15 million. Something no deal, no contract, no lawyer could ever give me. My name, untouched. My truth, unshaken. My power, fully mine. Because in the end, he didn't lose because he lied. He lost because he thought I would.